It was a quiet Sunday morning, the kind that feels borrowed from a better time. The smell of coffee filled the air, sunlight filtered lazily through the blinds, and for a moment everything felt still. I was in the kitchen flipping pancakes, her favorite, blueberry with extra vanilla, thinking it might be nice to surprise her with breakfast in bed. Just something small. Something normal. That's when my phone buzzed. I expected the usual, maybe a weather alert, a fantasy football update, or some spam notification from a forgotten app. But what I saw instead made my stomach knot. It was a notification from our shared laptop. We'd synced it to our cloud accounts a year ago when we were planning a trip and thought having everything shared would be more connected. I hadn't thought about it since. The sender's name on the message preview was Oliver D. I didn't know anyone by that name. And the message? Wish you could have stayed longer. Last night, yeah? Just those words. In asterisk, mate. Personal. Heavy with a familiarity that didn't belong in a marriage. My hand froze midair, spatula hovering over the SK asterisk let. I didn't react. I didn't make a sound. I just tapped the screen, took a screensh asterisk T, and then another. Not out of panic, out of clarity. I knew better than to jump to conclusions. But I also knew this wasn't nothing. I left the pancakes to burn. For the next hour I moved like I was on autopilot. Cleaned the kitchen. Took out the trash. Tidied the living room. All while that message replayed in my mind like a looped video I couldn't pause. I didn't text her. Didn't call. I waited. When she finally came downstairs, she was in one of my old sweatshirts, hair pulled into a lazy bun. She looked peaceful. At ease. And I hated that my first thought was, she doesn't look like someone with something to hide. I stayed calm. Asked her how she slept. She said fine, with a stretch and a yawn like it was any other morning. Then, without preamble, I showed her the screensh asterisk T. Hey, saw this pop up on my phone earlier. She looked at it, blinked, and then laughed. Actually laughed. Oh my God, seriously? She said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. You think that's something? I didn't answer. I just waited. It's Oliver from work, she continued, now with this airy, dismissive tone. He's always joking around like that. It's kind of his thing, he says awkward stuff and everyone rolls their eyes. She shrugged like it was nothing, like I should have laughed along with her. It was just a joke. Come on, Noah. I didn't smile. Her eyes narrowed, just a flicker, then she tilted her head and leaned against the counter. You're not seriously getting jealous over that, are you? I said nothing. Just watched her. And that's when her whole posture shifted. Her defense hardened. Wow. Okay, she said, pushing off the counter. If we're going to start the day with an interrogation, maybe I'll just go for a walk. Jesus. Now it was my turn to blink. Interrogation? I hadn't even raised my voice. You're acting like I'm cheating or something, she added, grabbing her keys. It was a message. From work. A joke. And suddenly I'm on trial. Tessa, I said finally, keeping my tone even. I didn't say anything. Exactly, she snapped. You didn't have to. The look said everything. I stepped back, hands up, giving her space. But that didn't slow her down. You know what? This is about your trust issues, not me. If you're going to twist every little thing into some conspiracy, I don't know what to tell you. Then she was gone. Just like that. The door closed behind her, and I stood there in a house that suddenly felt colder. The silence after she left was worse than the argument that never happened. I replayed everything, the message, her laugh, her deflection, the sudden offense. It all happened so fast. And too smoothly. Like she'd rehearsed it. Like she'd expected it. I checked the laptop. It was still logged in. But the message thread with Oliver was gone. Deleted. No archive. No trash. Just gone. I sat down at the kitchen table, the one we picked out together from a vintage shop downtown. The table where we used to play cards and talk about nothing and everything. And I stared at my phone, at that one frozen moment in time preserved in pixels. Wish you could have stayed longer. Last night, yeah? I didn't know who Oliver D. was. I didn't know what had happened last night. But I knew what it felt like when a wall started to crack. I knew what it meant when someone redirected instead of reassured. When someone deleted messages before you could see them. I didn't have proof. Not yet. But I had something worse. Doubt. The kind that doesn't scream or shout but whispers constantly. A seed that plants itself in the back of your mind and takes root in everything. And once it's there, nothing feels the same again. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the ceiling fan as if it might offer answers. Tessa had come home just after sunset carrying a smoothie and wearing the same passive smile she used when she wanted to avoid conflict. She didn't bring up the message. Neither did I. But something had shifted. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. So I started rewinding the past few months in my mind, detail by painful detail, stitching together all the moments I had previously brushed off. It had started subtly. At first, she was just busy. Busier than usual. She missed dinner one night because she said her boss was keeping her late. Then again the next week. After a while, it became normal for me to eat alone. She'd send a "sorry babe, I'll make it up to you" text, maybe throw in a heart emoji, and I'd tell myself not to overthink it. Then came the self-care phase. Tessa started going to yoga. At night. 3 times a week, then 4. I asked her why she suddenly needed so much time away. She said, "It's for my mental health, Noah. You should be supportive." So I was. At least I tried to be. I even offered to drive her once. She said no, that it was her time and she needed that independence. I respected it even though the explanation never sat right with me. Something about how quickly she shut me down. Then there were the personal growth retreats. Weekend trips to places like Lake Harmony and Asheville, booked last minute and always with vague details. She'd come home energized, refreshed, talking about how important it was to reclaim your own space. And again, I didn't question it. I didn't want to be the controlling husband. But I remember thinking, since when did rediscovering yourself mean disappearing for 2 days without a phone call? And that perfume. God, the perfume. It was different. She'd always worn soft, floral scents, things you barely noticed until you were close enough to kiss her neck. But this one was bold. Musky. Like something you wear when you want to be remembered. I asked her about it once. She laughed. It was a gift from someone at work. Who gives someone perfume as a gift at work? Still, I let it go. But the signs were there. In hindsight, they were flashing red. Like the way she'd leave her phone face down every time she came home. How she changed her password and didn't even bother explaining why. How she suddenly cared more about her appearance, not for us, not for date nights, but for when she was going out with the girls. And I wanted to believe her. I really did. Because if I didn't believe her, what did that say about our marriage? But when I started thinking about the lingerie, that's when something inside me cracked. She'd started buying new sets, lacy, expensive pieces in colors I'd never seen before. And not once did she wear them for me. I asked her about them one evening, trying to keep it light. "You planning a fashion show I'm not invited to?" She rolled her eyes. "It's just nice to feel **XY for yourself sometimes." And yeah, sure, I get that. But when you're married and your wife suddenly starts dressing up for nights you're not part of, it's hard not to wonder who exactly she's trying to impress. Then there were the pictures. Or rather, the lack of them. She stopped tagging me in posts. Family gatherings, work parties, even casual brunches, my name was nowhere. She used to brag about me. Used to post about how lucky she felt. Now I was invisible. It wasn't just social media, though. It was how she looked at me. Or didn't. How she'd brush off my hand when I reached for hers. How an asterisk Macy turned into something functional, scheduled, if it happened at all. I tried to talk to her once, late one night while we were watching a movie. I turned to her and said, "Tess, are we okay?" She didn't answer at first. Just stared at the screen. Then she said, "Of course we are. Why wouldn't we be?" And I remember that her voice didn't sound angry. It sounded tired. Like someone who'd already emotionally left the room. The final flag? The gym. I'd wanted to surprise her. I had the day off and thought I'd swing by the fitness center she started frequenting a month ago. I even stopped by the bakery to grab her favorite muffins. But when I told her the plan over breakfast, she looked alarmed, actually alarmed. "No," she said quickly. "I mean, I appreciate it, but I don't want to mix spaces like that." Mix spaces? Yeah, you know. Like, I want that to be my thing. Just me. It's where I clear my head. I nodded, pretending to understand. But that day, I threw the muffins in the trash. And now, sitting in the dark with only the glow of the TV and the weight of too many unanswered questions, I realized something I hadn't let myself say out loud. I didn't know her anymore. This wasn't about one message from a guy named Oliver. It wasn't about one deflection or one deleted thread. It was about patterns. A slow erosion. Like rust on something you thought was solid. I'd been watching my marriage unravel strand by strand, and I'd been too afraid to pull the thread myself. Until now. Tuesday was an overcast day. The kind that sits heavy on your shoulders before it even starts. I hadn't planned anything unusual. Just the normal routine. Wake up, dress for work, commute, emails. But something in me shifted mid-morning, maybe instinct, maybe just fatigue from playing detective in my own life. I told my supervisor I wasn't feeling well, grabbed my keys, and drove home. Her car was there. I sat in my own driveway for a full 5 minutes, engine idling, heart racing. From outside, the house looked perfectly normal. Our house? Same blue siding, same porch swing, same flower bed she insisted we plant together last spring. It was all painfully familiar except for the gut feeling that told me I didn't want to walk through that front door. And then I heard it. Laughter. Not her usual laugh, the kind I used to know, the one that crinkled her eyes and softened her voice. This was lower in asterisk mate. Like something shared. Something private. A man's laugh followed. My body went cold. I stepped out of the car and made my way to the front porch, trying not to breathe too loudly. I stopped at the window where I could see just a sliver of the hallway. That's when I saw them. A pair of men's sneakers sat by the staircase. Next to them, a gym bag. Black. Expensive looking. Not mine. I didn't go inside. I didn't pound on the door or yell or barge into the room. I just stood there staring. My hands clenched so tight they started to tremble. But rage wasn't the dominant emotion. It was grief. And something else, certainty. The kind of certainty that doesn't scream but settles into your bones and tells you, you were right all along. I walked back to my car, got in, and pulled up the app for our smart doorbell system. Tessa had insisted we install it for peace of mind. That irony wasn't lost on me. The footage from that morning was there. Timestamped at 8:13 a.m. She'd opened the front door, hair still damp from a shower, wearing a t-shirt that wasn't mine. She smiled. And then Oliver D. walked in. They embraced. Not a hug. Not a thanks for coming by, pat on the back. It was long. Warm. Familiar. Like people who didn't need to hide anymore because the hiding had become routine. She closed the door behind them. I watched the video again. And then a third time. Just to be sure. Just to let it carve deep enough that I'd never forget how it felt. When I got back into the house hours later, she was gone. The shoes, the bag, the low laughter, all vanished like they had never existed. But they had. I knew they had. I didn't say a word. Instead, I opened the laptop we once shared. The same one she used for late-night projects and client reports. It was still synced to our cloud account. She'd forgotten or didn't realize that I could still access the backups. I copied everything. Texts. Voicemails. Calendar appointments. Even **TS of her location data from the fitness app she thought I didn't know about. Her yoga nights weren't at the gym. They were at the Marriott by the airport. I found reservations 4 nights over the past 2 months. Booked in her name. Paid with her card. No cover story. Just sloppiness. And arrogance. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of watching me unravel. I didn't want some teary apology or a gaslighting session where she tried to make me feel like I'd imagined everything. I wanted facts. I wanted closure. And I wanted to leave on my terms. So I downloaded full backups of her iMessages and WhatsApp data using the cloud tools we both once used for syncing vacation photos. The irony again, the very tech we installed to feel more connected was now the evidence proving how far apart we drifted. There were dozens of messages from Oliver. Some tame. Some anything but. They talked about everything, places they'd been, moments they'd shared, things they regretted and things they didn't. It wasn't a fling. It was a life. A second one, running parallel to ours. One message stopped me cold. If he ever finds out, it's over. But sometimes I think it'd be a relief. I'm tired of pretending. Tired of pretending. I sat there for what felt like hours, surrounded by silence. Our house was filled with it. The photos on the wall, the blanket she crocheted during lockdown, the spice rack she alphabetized, all still there. All part of the same set. But I'd seen behind the curtain. And now the set felt fake. By the time she came home, I had already finished my work. All the files were saved, labeled, and encrypted. Copies were sent to a personal drive, one that wasn't connected to any shared device. I even took pictures of the doorbell footage on my phone, just in case she tried to wipe the system. When she walked in, she kissed me on the cheek. No hesitation. No guilt. Just routine. "Hey, babe," she said, kicking off her shoes. "How was your day?" I smiled. "Fine." She walked into the kitchen, humming. Opened the fridge. Asked if I wanted takeout or if she should cook something quick. I told her I'd already eaten. She didn't press. She never even noticed the tremble in my hand when I picked up my glass. Because she wasn't looking. And I realized in that moment, I was already gone. I hadn't physically left. Not yet. But part of me had walked out of that house the second I saw that video. And it wasn't coming back. The moment I knew was the moment I stopped reacting. That was new for me. In the past, I might have stormed in with **TS and righteous anger, demanding answers she'd find ways to dance around. But not this time. This time, I let the facts do the talking. Quietly, methodically, I started my own version of casework. At night, while Tessa slept, or pretended to sleep, I sat at the dining table with my laptop and a separate encrypted USB drive. I cross-referenced dates from her calendar with hotel receipts pulled from our joint bank account. I cataloged phone logs against her claims of work dinners and girls' nights. The inconsistencies piled up fast. They weren't clever. They were lazy. The thing about betrayal is, once it begins, most people don't put the effort into hiding it well. They think your love will do the work for them, that it'll blind you. So I stopped being blind. I went back 3 months and found a pattern. Thursday evenings. Late returns. The same Lyft driver, 3 times in 6 weeks. His name was Cody. I found his business card in our kitchen junk drawer and called him anonymously. Told him I'd left my wallet in his car and needed to know what hotel he'd dropped the passenger off at last Thursday. He told me without hesitation. Doubletree on 4th. Same place she had that seminar. I started building a folder. Digitally and physically. I printed **TS and labeled each set with dates and corresponding receipts. Phone records. Google Maps location logs. Even text message **TS from the Oliver thread I'd recovered. It was all there. Not just cheating. Coordination. Habit. One entry read, "Same room? I'll leave the key in the envelope like last time." The thing is, I wasn't collecting this for revenge. I wasn't trying to trap her. I was collecting it so that when I left, I wouldn't feel like I was walking away from something unclear. I wanted to look at this file and say, I was right. I saw it. I knew. So I stayed calm. We still had dinner. Still watched Netflix. Still took the trash out together. I asked about her day. She gave the same curated answers. I nodded, smiled, did the dishes. Meanwhile, I was organizing the collapse of our marriage like a careful demolition, ensuring when it fell, it wouldn't hit me on the way down. She never noticed. She thought I was disengaged. Maybe bored. She took it as a sign that I'd grown distant, which probably gave her permission to do even less hiding. A week after I began my quiet withdrawal, I made an appointment with a divorce attorney. Her office was in a converted townhouse off Walnut Street, tucked between a bakery and a florist. Almost charming. Really. Inside, it smelled like cinnamon and wood polish. Not the sterile cold I expected. The attorney, Julia, was young but sharp. She didn't flinch when I laid out the situation. She asked questions with precision and didn't soften her language for my sake. I respected that. "You have proof," she said, flipping through the manila folder I handed her. "That's good. Judges like timelines." "I'm not here for vengeance," I said. "Just clarity." Julia looked up. "Clarity," she repeated. "That's a first. I just want out without the drama. I want to be done." She nodded, flipping a page. "With what you've collected, we can draft a clean petition. No fault with evidence on standby if contested. You keep the house, especially since she's been residing elsewhere, technically speaking, during some of the time. We'll get a temporary order to freeze joint assets. You've got leverage. Use it." I signed the initial paperwork with a hand that didn't shake. The next part was waiting. Waiting for her to make the next mistake. Waiting for the right timing. I didn't want to fight. I wanted it to feel clinical. Processed. Done. I made copies of everything. Left one at my brother's place, one at a bank safety box. One stayed with Julia. The rest? I kept with me in a locked briefcase under the passenger seat of my car. The absurdity of it wasn't lost on me. My marriage reduced to a briefcase and time-stamped folders. But that's what it had become. Tessa started noticing something was off. Not enough to get suspicious, but enough to try. She started getting home earlier. Made dinner one night, homemade ravioli, which she hadn't cooked in years. Told me she missed how we used to be. "I feel like we've both been distracted lately," she said, scooping salad onto my plate. I just nodded. "Yeah, life's been heavy." She smiled, relieved that I didn't press further. That I didn't accuse. She didn't realize that indifference can look a lot like forgiveness. Or like distance. Or, in my case, strategy. Later that night, she asked if I wanted to reconnect. I told her I was tired. She didn't press. I stayed up late and wrote down everything. The way she leaned across the table. The questions she avoided. The false warmth in her eyes. By now, the folder was close to full. I included *TS of her gym check-ins, one of which overlapped with a Lyft drop-off at the Marriott. I included bank records for the lingerie boutique, a place she never wore anything from around me. And I kept adding to the email log, most of which had moved to her personal Gmail, which she forgot was also linked to our cloud through an old iPad we never wiped. One email stood out. From Oliver. He's lucky you're still putting up the act. If it were me, I'd have left months ago. That one hurt in a different way. Not because of what he said, but because he was right. I should have left months ago. But now? Now I was leaving with purpose. I started sleeping on the guest room mattress, citing back pain. She didn't argue. I began packing items subtly, spare chargers, keepsakes, a few framed photos. Nothing dramatic. Just quiet removal. One night, she asked if we were okay. I told her yes. I smiled. And the next morning, I called Julia and told her to file. It happened so fast, I almost missed it. One morning, I found fresh coffee waiting on the counter, my mug, the one with the faded skyline she got me on our 3rd anniversary. A note was tucked underneath, scribbled in her handwriting. Hope today's not too heavy. Thought of you when I passed the cafe this morning. Love you. I stared at the note longer than I read it. There was nothing unusual about the gesture itself. Tessa used to leave notes like this all the time. But not lately. Not since she started disappearing under the guise of late meetings and yoga classes. Not since I became a ghost in my own house. Something had shifted. That night, she came home earlier than she had in weeks. She made dinner again, something elaborate. Seared salmon, lemon asparagus, wild rice with dill. She poured us wine. The good bottle. She lit a candle. Put music on. What's the occasion? I asked, careful not to sound suspicious. She shrugged almost shyly. Do I need a reason to cook for my husband? I smiled. Guess not. But I saw it. The nervous glances when I looked at her. The way she held her fork too tight. The fact that she brought up old memories, our trip to Charleston, that rainy day we got stuck in the hotel elevator. She was trying to rewind time. Or make it look like she was. In the following days, the pattern continued. She wore the perfume I liked, the soft, floral one she hadn't used in months. The same one she wore when we first started dating. She played our playlist in the car, letting it drift into the kitchen while she cooked. She suggested we take a weekend trip. Just the two of us. We need to get away, she said one night, resting her head on my shoulder. Reconnect. I nodded, keeping my face calm. She didn't know what I knew. But she knew something had changed. She didn't say it, but she felt it. The distance. The cold. Because I had stopped asking. I had stopped checking in. I no longer waited for her texts or looked at her phone when she left the room. I didn't reach for her in bed. I didn't flinch when she said she'd be working late. I stopped giving her my attention. And that, more than anything, scared her. She wasn't responding to guilt. She was responding to fear. Not fear of losing me, but fear of being found out. I watched her rehearse affection like a play she used to know by heart. She touched my arm more. Laughed at things that weren't funny. Told me I looked good when I came down the stairs in the morning, like she just noticed I still existed. I mirrored it all. I kissed her forehead when I left for work. I replied to her texts with emojis. I complimented her cooking. Not because I believed in the act, but because I wanted to see how far she'd take it. The more she gave, the more hollow it felt. One night, she brought out an old photo album, one I hadn't seen in years. We sat on the couch as she flipped through pages of road trips, birthday dinners, lazy Sundays. She pointed out the picture of us at the beach, our feet buried in sand, both sunburned and laughing. You look so happy here, she said. We both do. She looked at me for a long time. I miss this, she whispered. Don't you? I paused. Of course. And it wasn't a lie. I miss what we were, what I thought we were. But that version of us was gone. That trust, once broken, had turned everything else into noise. The next day, she made breakfast. Told me she was taking a break from evening yoga. She even offered to pick up dinner on the way home, Thai, from that place we used to order from once a week. I figured we could watch something funny tonight, she said, setting down the takeout bag. Laughter's good medicine, right? I nodded, smiled, thanked her. We watched the movie. We even laughed. And I felt nothing. She tried again that weekend. Woke me up early, asked if I wanted to go hiking. Packed snacks. Wore the same old hoodie she used to wear when things were simpler. She reached for my hand as we walked the trail. I let her hold it. Not because I wanted to, but because she needed it to believe I hadn't already left. But I had. Each act of kindness was too perfectly timed, too conveniently familiar. She wasn't reconnecting. She was reacting. She was doing what she thought a wife should do when her husband begins to slip away. She was trying to resuscitate something that had already flatlined. I started tracking her reactions. Not in an accusatory way, but analytically. Like a study subject. She'd peek at my phone when she thought I wasn't looking. She asked more questions: where I was going, who I was texting, what time I'd be home. Her insecurity had finally arrived. But not because she loved me. Because she sensed control slipping. And now she was grasping for it. She suggested we start couples therapy. We've just been off lately, she said, her eyes searching. I want to understand why. I told her I'd think about it. And I did. Not because I believed it would fix anything, but because I wanted to see how far she'd stretch the performance. Each day she offered another olive branch. She cleaned the garage, offered to do my laundry, said she'd cut back her hours at work, brought home flowers, wore my favorite sweater, cooked my favorite meal, turned the lights low, poured wine, looked at me with soft eyes. I kissed her, and I felt like I was kissing a stranger. She asked me that night if I was happy. I'm okay, I said. And in her world, okay meant salvageable. She curled into me and said she was glad we were finding our rhythm again. But all I felt was the weight of how many lies could fit inside that silence. She wasn't healing our marriage. She was decorating a grave. It was a Tuesday morning when she told me. She stood by the sink, hands wrapped around a mug she hadn't touched. Her voice was unusually soft, like she was afraid it might echo. Noah, I might be pregnant. I blinked. Pregnant? She nodded slowly, her eyes searching mine for a flicker of something: relief, maybe, or excitement. I gave her neither. How far along? I asked. I don't know for sure, she said. I took a test yesterday. It was faint. I'm going to the doctor next week. I nodded. Okay. That was it. No panic. No joy. Just a calculated response. She looked thrown off by my calm. I could tell she expected some kind of emotional reaction. But by then, my trust in her was already a scorched field. And the timing was too neat. Too convenient. Later that day, I called a private clinic 2 towns over and scheduled a paternity test under an alias. It was discreet. Cash only. No records would trace back to me. I told them I'd bring a sample when the time came. They said I wasn't the first. In the meantime, I reached out to Oliver. I wasn't sure what I expected, but he answered quicker than I thought. Hello? Oliver? I asked. This is Noah. Tessa's husband. Silence. A long one. Yeah, he finally said. I figured this might happen. I'm not calling to threaten you, I said. I just want the truth. He hesitated. Look, man. I didn't know. Not at first. She told me you two were separated. That things were already over. They weren't, I said. I know that now. She wasn't honest with me either. I didn't speak. I just listened. She got real intense toward the end, he continued. Clingy. Emotional. She started talking about leaving everything behind and starting over. I pulled back. She didn't take it well. Are you still in contact with her? No, he said. Not since a couple weeks ago. She texted me a few times. I didn't respond. I hung up without another word. The following week, I drove Tessa to her doctor's appointment. She acted giddy. Nervous, maybe? She reached for my hand in the waiting room. I let her hold it. The nurse called her in, and I sat there with a blank stare until they returned. It's real, she said, beaming. I'm about 6 weeks. I smiled. That's great news. She looked so relieved. But I was already texting the clinic. The DNA test took 10 days. I went about my life like nothing was wrong. Cooked dinner. Answered emails. Played the part. When the results came in, I opened the envelope alone in my car. Probability of paternity, 0%. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there and let the quiet confirm everything I already knew. That night, I came home and told her I needed space. I said I was leaving for a few days to clear my head. Instead, I drove to my attorney's office. The next morning, Tessa came downstairs to an empty house. By the time she read the divorce filing, I was already gone. 3 months later, I was living alone in a quiet town outside Philadelphia. I'd rented a small house by the river, nothing extravagant, just clean, quiet, mine. I worked from home, took long walks, breathed again. I didn't tell many people what happened. Those who knew offered sympathy, but I didn't want pity. I just wanted space, to think, to be. I joined a local support group, mostly people who'd gone through similar fractures. First, I didn't speak. I just listened. But there was something healing about hearing others say out loud what I'd been holding in. She reached out a few times, texts, voicemails, even a letter. Apologies. Confusion. Denial. I never answered. One Saturday afternoon, I wandered into a small book event downtown. I wasn't looking for anything. Just wanted to K*LL time. That's where I met Lena. She was soft-spoken, thoughtful. Nothing performative about her. We talked about favorite authors. About how silence didn't have to be awkward. We got coffee the next weekend. Then lunch. Then walks. It wasn't a romance, not yet. But it was something kind. Something real. And it reminded me what calm felt like. What it meant to be seen without having to perform. I still thought about Tessa sometimes. Not with anger. Just a dull ache. The kind you get from a healed wound when it rains. But I didn't miss her. I missed who I thought she was. There's a difference. The truth is, it wasn't the betrayal that destroyed me. It wasn't even Oliver. It was the months of pretending I didn't notice. The gaslighting. The erosion of reality. The way she made me question my own gut until the proof screamed louder than her lies. But now I was done living in reaction to her. I didn't need closure. I didn't need revenge. I just needed air. And I had it. I'd rebuilt a life from the pieces she left behind. One not defined by mistrust or apology, but by peace, clarity, and a quiet reminder. I had been tolerating less than I deserved. Now I was finally free.